Hey guys, it's been a while. I apologize. I'm in the moving process yet again, second time in 1 year, and I guess third time in 3 years. I don't know. I never moved this much in my whole life, so it's pretty crazy. But in about 3.5 weeks, I should be in my forever home, or at least my for a very long time home, and that'll be the end of it. And I can finally get all my cool game stuff and train stuff and all that set up. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you guys about High Score. It was released yesterday on Netflix. I have watched all 6 episodes. I knocked out like 4.5 of them last night, and it was very engaging. I really liked it, and I took care of the other episode and a half this morning. I really liked it a lot, and if I was going to do a mini documentary series on the history of video games, it's probably really close to the way I would organize it and set it up and would want it presented. Episode 1, you got the rise and fall of Atari, along with some of the very earlier stuff, but primarily the rise and fall of Atari and the Fairchild F. Is it Channel F or is it just Fairchild? The Fairchild, it's before my time, believe it or not, but a little bit of the history on that. That was the first cartridge-based system. They talked to the kids of the guy who invented that, who's an African-American electrical engineer. I did not know that. It was actually really interesting. And the first video game competition, they talked to the person who won that for I think it was Space Invaders. So just Nolan Bushnell, of course, and it was just an interesting. Why does he have to be in every video? I don't know, but anyway, really interesting. And the second, they cut off the episode at a great time because it's with all the episodes really. You got the collapse of the video game, the home console market in '83 with the release of E.T., and they actually talked to the programmer for E.T. I always forget his name, I apologize, but he also did a lot of other great games like Yars' Revenge. But anyway, they talked to him, so it was cool that he agreed to be interviewed for sort of a dubious thing like that. And it episode 1 culminates with the crash in '83, and just a little snippet of what's on the horizon, and you see an NES, and then we get into the rise of Nintendo in '85, and just how important that was for the time, and how it really did revolutionize things. And one thing I really appreciated, episode 3 veered off just a little bit, and normally when we talk about the history of games, you got just kind of like how the world is today. You got your console people and you got your PC people, and that's it, and they're totally separate things or whatever. But when episode 3 started talking about the rise of the adventure game and of the RPG, inevitably you have to go in and talk about computer games when you do that kind of thing. And I was shocked. They interviewed the founders of Sierra Online, Ken and Roberta Williams. I played all those games when I was little. I was a huge fan of Roberta Williams games and just Sierra Online games in general. They kind of dropped off the face of the earth when they sold Sierra Online, and understandably, I mean, it's not like they went MIA or anything like that. I think he had a blog. They were busy sailing around the world, and when you sell your software company for hundreds of millions of dollars, that's those are the kinds of things you get to do, I guess. But it was really cool that both of them agreed to be interviewed, and she walked through her process of just how she would design a game back in the 80s, which is really fascinating to see. I was just a fan of all those King's Quest and Space Quest games and stuff like that. So very cool that they agreed to participate in something like that. Also, Lord British, if you guys any of you were fans of the Ultima series, that's a name that's probably familiar with you. I always forget his full name. I think it's Garrett something, but in the gaming world, he's always Lord British, which I have Ultima 2 for the Apple II, and I know I played maybe Ultima 5 or something like that on the PC, but I didn't really get into that stuff until late 90s with the rise of Ultima Online, so it was really cool to see how Dungeons and Dragons influenced that and all that. And then once the consoles were capable, some of that carried over to consoles with Square and Final Fantasy and all that. So, Episode 3 was, in particular, was very, very cool to me, and just the people they interviewed and that I remember from my youth. And then Episode 4, times progressed, and there's a new contender, the Genesis, and it was the rise of Sega and that whole fight with Nintendo, which those of you that watch my channel that are too young to remember that was absolutely epic. Everything today pales in comparison. That was the two heavyweights duking it out, and the benefit, the winners of that were the gamers. So many amazing things got put out in that era. That was and I was a Nintendo guy then. Now you see me doing more Genesis stuff just because a lot of it's new to me, but I don't have anything against either system. There's so many great games. So you got the rise of Sega and Sonic, and their marketing strategy for going after Nintendo, and at the time Nintendo had like a 90% market share with the NES, so it's very interesting to see how they did their David versus Goliath thing against Nintendo. So, and then you get into the early 90s and the rise of Street Fighter 2, which triggered an arcade renaissance, and then subsequently Mortal Kombat, and that triggered a lot of politicians to get all weird about violence in video games and stuff like that. And ultimately, this sort of the modern, more immersive game, the 3D shooter and all that. The creator from they said id Software in the game. I always said ID Software growing up. I'm not sure which is right. To me and my friends, it was always ID was the company. Maybe it is pronounced id, and I just didn't know that all these years. So maybe there was something cool I learned. But that's the company that did Wolfenstein 3D and Doom and stuff originally. And it was really cool to see him, talking about his creations and stuff like that. So, and by that time we're into what were we at? Where high power at the time. It was like a 90 megahertz 486, an IBM 486, and I don't even think Pentiums had quite come out yet. So that's era of PC gaming. I remember. Shame on you, knocking things over. Anyways, and it was educational. As somebody that knows a lot about video game history, I learned some stuff. It was very, very cool to see programmers and creators and designers from back in the day agree to be interviewed. And as somebody that produced this really took the time to, or already had the connections to contact these people and get them to agree to share their stories. One that I particularly enjoyed, and I don't want to. I won't spoil it for you, and it's common knowledge, but it just doesn't seem like something a lot of people go, huh? There was a lawsuit between MGM and Nintendo over Donkey Kong being too much like King Kong, and they interviewed Nintendo's lawyer from back in the day who tried a brilliant case against MGM. He really, he obviously he won. That's why Nintendo's still here. But what a lot of people don't realize is the attorney's name was Kirby. That was his last name. Sean Kirby was the attorney. I apologize. Shame on you. One of the joys of having cats, it's worse than children sometimes. But Sean Kirby was Nintendo's lawyer, and that's not a coincidence. And to honor him, they named their character Kirby after him. So, but I had never seen an interview with him. I know the story, but I'd never seen him interviewed or share his thoughts on that or anything like that. So it was just really, really, really cool to hear that, and then to hear these pioneer developers talk about making their games. I especially enjoyed Roberta Williams. That's really was really, really neat for me. So anyway, that's my spiel on the the Netflix series High Score. If you got a Netflix subscription and a few hours, I really recommend that you check it out. Put down your controller for a little while. It was a cool series. A lot of they went over to Japan, interviewed people from Nintendo. There's the lady that did U.S. marketing for Nintendo, who's really probably primarily responsible for the way our Nintendo Power looks and influential in the design of the NES versus the Japanese Famicom, stuff like that. You know, it's very interesting to get these people's insights and how they had some foresight and their pulse on the market in the 80s and 90s, and it was just an all-around interesting thing. And if you know a lot about video game history, you'll know a lot of it, but the interviews are what made it really worthwhile for watching, just to hear it from, straight from the horse's mouth, and probably pick up a few things. I know I did. So anyway, High Score on Netflix. I would certainly check it out, especially if you already have a Netflix subscription. If you're waiting for an excuse to get a Netflix subscription, okay. It's only a 6-episode thing. There's no, I don't know if there's plans for a sequel or anything like that. They brought it up almost to the modern day. So, but it was just a good miniseries. So if you got a Netflix subscription or your buddy does or whatever, check it out. All right. As far as the channel is concerned, a quick update. So once I move and get settled, probably about a month from now, we'll be pumping out a lot of Genesis reviews. I got several in the can. I just haven't uploaded them. I want to tweak the editing and stuff a little bit, so I guess they're not technically in the can, but they're in the pipes. So anyways, all right. Talk to you guys soon. Take care. Sit, Dick, sit. Good cat.